All right, welcome to Inside the Box podcast. We are here with Andrew.
Andrew.
I'm Devin.
I'm Juan.
This is Juan. So we are uh, striving to be boxers in the Quad Cities, and this is our coach and also our barber, Juan, as well. So coach and barber. But so today we want to talk about just some of the boxing fights that happen and are happening, but mainly the social media cards. So like the KSI card coming up on the 27th, and maybe the Gibb card coming out on the 10th, but mainly the KSI card. But first, before we get into that, what do you guys think of the Anthony Joshua fight? Did you watch it? What did you see from the clips that you've watched? What do you think?
Yeah. I was able to watch most of it before ESPN spoiled it for me because I was watching behind. So it was a good fight. Joshua came out strong. Took probably the first couple rounds, and then Usyk started to catch his stride again. It was pretty back and forth all the way to the ninth when Joshua tried unloading, and I think when he couldn't finish him in the ninth, that's kind of where he kind of tanked. Other than that, I mean, I thought it was a good showing from AJ. I don't have anything against what he did. It's just he's got to keep pressing. He just didn't press.
Who were you expecting to win the fight? Did you think Anthony Joshua was going to return, or did you say, okay, I'm kind of expecting Usyk to come back, or what was?
See, my thing from the start was if Anthony Joshua comes out a little more aggressive, uses that weight and that power he has, that I think he could beat Usyk. But if he comes out the same way he did in the first fight, timid, just pawing at the jab, not really throwing anything, there's no chance. Usyk's just tactical. He has that head movement. He's a southpaw. He's already hard to fight. AJ wasn't even getting his foot on the outside last fight, so it was hard to even get anything going. But I thought this fight, if Anthony Joshua could pick it up a little bit, kind of get in, let his hands go, use the power we were used to seeing from him back when he was younger, that he had a pretty good shot. And that ninth round kind of showed it when he did it, but he just needed to do that for the whole fight, really.
Or towards the end of the fight, too.
Yeah, and so I'm like a Anthony Joshua fan. And so like when I really got into boxing, a lot of who I watched was Anthony Joshua. And I don't know if it was because of like the knockout highlights that I saw or what it was, but I just became a fan of him. But going into this fight with Usyk, it's like you can't underestimate how good Usyk is. And so like I think a lot of people had AJ as an underdog, but there's always that chance with him, and that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping that punch was going to come in that would just make everything go different, but obviously it didn't happen. But did you guys see the speech that he gave after? Did you see any clips of that?
I did not. I watched some of the fight, but you know what? I think, I didn't get to watch the speech at the end to see what they were talking about. But I assumed that maybe they were going for a third fight, but I don't know.
Yeah,
if that was it.
So we'll dive into that a little bit. But what'd you think of the clips that you saw of the fight?
You know what? So going to why I like Anthony Joshua too is just because of his like figure. I think I like the heavyweight that's like, he just looks like an athlete. Yeah. And he looks like he can just hang in there and just moves good, has a good, great guy.
Right.
But I also like Usyk because he's just like, he just looked like he was throwing a lot of punches, very tough. Even those later shots like weren't able to take him down.
Yeah.
So I like Anthony Joshua. I thought maybe he was gonna come a little harder, but I thought he put up a good fight.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know. For me, I don't know if it's just me, but I felt like even though Anthony Joshua has been working, I feel like there was still not a sense of really where he was at defensively. Like I feel like a lot of the time when Usyk would throw a punch or he would go in, he would drop his head, but he would always keep his hands low. And when he starts getting hit with flurries, it like seems like he's using more of his head as a guard more than his hands sometimes.
Like moving, yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I felt like if there was more movement there, maybe not necessarily around the ring, but just lateral movement, kind of the stuff you've been telling us to work on, like the up and down movements, left to right, and just continuing to keep that head off plane. I think that as long as he wasn't catching the flow of Usyk and he was going at his own pace defensively, I think it could have changed a lot.
And I wonder if like, you know, like you getting knocked out, if that has, or you getting hit hard like that, like if that has a result on you, because we've seen that like with Pacquiao, and we've seen that with multiple fighters that have gotten like knocked out or even knocked down.
Yep.
And I think as Anthony Joshua, you're the challenger. You need to, you know, put it on. You need to come hard.
Yeah.
You know, if you lose the first fight, hey, you need to switch it up and come back, you know, the second fight, like even harder. So for me, I was kind of questioning, like, you know, is he done? Is he doesn't have that like spark of, you know, aggression?
Yeah.
But, you know, he put up a good fight, but I wish he would have just a little more
Laid it out
aggression.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've been thinking too. Is, you know, like you said, a lot of fighters, they get that first knockdown, and now that instead of being tough and pushing the pace, they're a little more timid, staying back, kind of just trying to work around it rather than getting into scuffles like that, because, you know, there's that chink in the armor now. So I definitely agree with you there. But I think that was probably the best outing from Joshua we've seen since the first Andy Ruiz fight. Even against Pulev, he was just sitting there, standing back, working his jab. But
well, and do you think it has a lot to do with what happened in the Andy Ruiz fight and him getting clipped? And
I think he got a little too comfortable after winning the second Ruiz fight, because that's how he won it.
Yep.
Ruiz didn't have the reach, he didn't have the height, so he was able to stand back like that jab.
Yeah.
Worked against Pulev too. Pulev's a little older, a little slower, kind of sat back. Weren't tons of power punches thrown, but against Usyk, I think he's just another animal, and that's not what they expected. You know, he came up from cruiserweight.
Yeah.
Nobody's expecting him to take over all the belts in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see. I do think it's just, he, like you said, Juan, he's got to get back to where he was. He's got to be the aggressor. I think Tony Bellew said it as well. If he's not pushing the pace, working it to the body, throwing those big shots like he should be for his size, he's gonna struggle here in the
I
heavyweight
did
division.
see that his coach, or one of his coaches, Robert Garcia,
Yeah.
he said that they were going for the knockout. You know, which
Yeah.
I did, you know, obviously 9th round, but you're right, like he should have pushed. And a heavyweight too, I feel like, I guess you do have to be more careful, because you could get knocked out like any round. I mean, we're talking about guys who have a punching power that's, you know, like the heaviest out of any of the classes. So, hey, I guess you do have to kind of be cautious, especially going into those later rounds. But I thought that was awesome that he could, you know, that he could put it on towards the end of the rounds, just a little more. I guess that's where you got to leave a little bit in the tank. But yeah, overall.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So after the fight, when all was said and done, and they talked about the decision and Usyk winning, there's actually clips of Anthony Joshua holding up the belts and then tosses them out the ring. Like tosses the belts out the ring. He gets mad. He walks out of the ring, almost gets out the door. Then he turns back around. He comes back in the ring, and then he just pretty much starts to praise Usyk for like.
This was on a clip, or this?
No,
was,
this all happened.
Oh, this all happened?
Yeah, it all happened yesterday.
Oh, wow.
After the fight, and he came back in the ring and he started like saying, "Oh, he's such a, you know, he's a good fighter. We need to give this man his props, his respect, and all this stuff." And just gave like this big speech, and you could tell that he is going like through something mentally, like after this loss. Like it is hitting him different, and I think that a lot of people are quick to say that this shows the true character of AJ, but I don't think it's necessarily the true character of him. I think it's just raw emotion of what happened
Oh,
after the
absolutely.
fight. Because like if you look at his life, like he doesn't live extremely lavish. He's not walking around all prideful. He's a very humble guy. You know, is involved in a bunch of stuff that has to do with the community. Very polite with
His
people.
trunks.
Yeah.
Say a lot. You know,
Yeah.
the classic black
Yeah.
with a little bit of,
Yeah.
you know, his sponsors.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so he's
Yeah.
very just, you know, down to earth, and then, you know, it's one blow up, and then now everybody's like,
Mhm.
oh, look at him, like I can't believe he did that. That's so somebody should grab the mic from him and all this stuff, and it
Yeah.
was just crazy.
It just goes to show the emotional stress that some of these fighters put themselves through. And, you know,
100%.
Anthony Joshua's probably had it the worst being in the heavyweight division, succeeding quite a bit. And then what happened with um, Andy
Andy Ruiz.
Ruiz, you know?
Yeah.
Now they're like, oh, now we know. He's not as good as we thought he was.
Yeah,
And then he's been hearing that constantly for years now. Even before the Ruiz fight, but the Ruiz fight really took it to a whole nother level. And I think that's been on his shoulders. He loses to Usyk
Yeah.
by dominating fashion that first fight. People are saying the same thing. Like they've just, I think it just got to him, and we finally saw that emotion kind of spew out from what's been going on.
well, even Eddie Hearn said yesterday at their post-fight press conference that he has not had a break from big fights.
Mhm.
Like it's been nothing
Oh,
but
yeah.
big
But
fights.
big
Like
fights.
Klitschko, Pulev, Andy Ruiz, and now Usyk back to back. Like if you look at the fights that he's had within the last however many years, like it's been nothing but stadium,
But-
Yeah.
main
Packed.
card fights.
Yes.
Like and only 2 of those fights has he not been heavyweight world champion,
Right.
and so he has that pressure on him for
Mhm.
that entire time,
yeah.
and so it's
And
like,
you know what? I think that also like goes into him probably being an athlete, and that's why I love boxing is because like, you know, you could be doing everything that you know that as an athlete you could be physically, mentally good, but with boxing you never know when you're gonna get caught.
Yeah.
You know, you lose, even like Teofimo Lopez, right? Like after that loss against George Kambosos, he took a while off
Oh,
yeah.
before getting a break fight or you know coming back on a win, and it's like he probably mentally, you know, that's hard when
Yeah.
you're an athlete and you push yourself and you're good, and then out of nowhere somebody beats you that wasn't supposed to beat you,
Yeah.
and then you're like, how am I gonna come back from
Yeah.
this? And then you have even more pressure than what you
Yes.
had before because people already expected you to be performing at your highest level. So it's like, I think that's a battle that you have to give yourself credit for and be like, hey, you know, I'm going to keep going 100%. But sometimes in boxing, too, there's always somebody who is wanting it more than you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, in reality, now it's a game of who wants the championship more,
yeah,
you know?
That kind of reminds me of, you know, the Duran-Leonard fight. First fight, Duran, you know, probably in great fashion beat Leonard, and then second fight, Leonard had that want. Duran ended up quitting. It's tough, man. Especially when you have people from moving up divisions. You haven't really seen this guy. He's smaller. He's a lot
Yeah.
quicker than most of the heavyweights you've been
Yeah.
fighting.
Throwing
And
more
and he's a
punches.
southpaw. Let
Yeah.
alone that. I don't think he's fought too many southpaws recently. He's trying to get on that outside, and I just think he got outclassed. And it's just tough, like you said, when
Yeah.
you have someone that you're supposed to beat. Not that he was supposed to beat Alexander Usyk, but other people, you know, he was supposed to
Yeah.
beat Ruiz,
yep,
and Ruiz got him with that one punch, and he was not the same the whole fight.
yeah,
That's like, I'm thinking, one of my favorite trilogy is the Juan Manuel Marquez versus Pacquiao. And Juan Manuel Marquez, you know, he was close. He was close to beating him every fight, but Pacquiao just had more punches, better movement. And the third fight, you know, he came back and he ended up knocking him out. Now, did he plan to knock him out? No, you know, but he, I'm sure he wanted, you know, and he was improving on, you know, I can't imagine the pressure that these guys go through, especially fighting another guy and potentially knowing like, all right, you know, I know that I got so close, like I'm, you know, what do I do,
Yeah,
do to beat
exactly.
this guy? So I'm also excited about the Canelo Triple G fight
Yeah.
because, we're gonna
Lot
see it. We're gonna see what happens, what kind of different game plan they come back with, and this might just give us another good fight. Joshua versus Usyk, 3. So
Yeah, we got a lot of good fights coming up.
Coming.
The
Oh, yeah.
Eubank Jr. and Ben fight,
Yeah.
like that's
That'll
gonna be
a good fight to
crazy.
watch.
But the more recent one coming up is this Saturday, this upcoming Saturday,
Saturday.
this week. The KSI versus Swarmz versus Louise card. And so I don't know. Do you want to pull up the fight card on your phone?
Yeah.
So
Let's
we
see
can
who-
kind of
yeah.
see who we got matching up. But what do you think while you're doing that? What do you guys think about the fact that KSI is fighting two people
Yeah.
one night? What are your thoughts?
I think it's stupid, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. I don't think I have to say very much else. You haven't fought in how long since?
So-
when was
so-
his last fight?
Yeah, it's 2019.
2019.
Yeah, it's been 3 years.
It's been 3 years,
Oof.
and not
Yeah.
only that, you're fighting. I mean, not the greatest professional boxer of all time, but by no means is he gonna just sit there and drop
Let
to the
you-
floor.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
But-
did see Jake Paul comment it, or they asked him what he thought about it, and he said that another fighter had done that before.
George
but,
Foreman.
yeah,
Foreman.
George
Yeah.
Foreman, and
About
that he
4
had
guys.
that all of them were set up to lose.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's like, people were upset. It wasn't worth it because they
Yeah.
were all set up to lose. So it's like, is he doing it to make a statement? Is he doing it to actually show off his talent? What is
Yeah.
the cause behind it?
And I think knowing the kind of like the situation between KSI and Jake Paul right now, you have KSI coming back, and his sole purpose is try to prove to everyone that he can beat Jake Paul, and
Yeah.
that's what he wants to do. So, first of all, he was supposed to fight Alex Wasabi,
Yep.
and he got pulled out because of a concussion, which. There's still speculation that there probably may not have been a concussion.
He just had a headache.
Yeah, could have just had a headache and pulled out. And then so now he's like, okay, well now I have to step it up. He calls in this UK rapper Swarmz.
Oh,
Everybody
man.
sees it and they hate the fact that he's fighting him. They're like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. And so he's like, now I got to save this event again. And so he's like, you know what? Let's do 2 fights. And so now he's doing 2 fights. But the reason why I like it is, one, I'm a KSI fan, and so it's just seeing him be able to fight twice in one night is awesome.
Hey, that
Especially you're
makes
getting
the
it for
ticket,
$10.
yeah.
You're getting it for $10. And then
Oh, that's the pay-per-view
yeah,
cost?
$10.
Oh, that's a good
That's
deal,
what I'm
man.
saying. $10
Yeah.
compared to Jake Paul's 60 against
Yeah.
Hassim. That didn't happen.
That's true.
But
But-
look. So he is also facing a professional fighter before Jake Paul, and that's another reason why
Okay.
he's doing a
Okay.
second fight.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have to give him credit for actually fighting a professional boxer, even if
Yeah,
whatever the
Yeah.
record may be, that is true. Hey,
It's true.
I mean,
yeah.
now do you guys know how many rounds?
6 rounds.
6 rounds.
From
Okay,
what,
so I
from
mean,
what Wikipedia says, at
Yeah.
least it's gonna be 6 rounds. I don't know how true that
You
is.
could probably change it to say 8.
Yeah, probably could. Honestly. But one thing I was gonna say is it doesn't help that you also had Jake Paul chiming in on this as soon as Alex Wasabi left, and this is what made people so mad when he picked
Yeah.
Swarmz. Is they see this opportunity. Jake just had his fight with
For
the team
Jake Paul.
canceled. He's been training, and KSI has this open spot. Jake's
But-
hounding him,
but-
telling him you can have all the money. So there's no reason for him to turn it down from what other people see.
Yeah,
So that doesn't help at all, and that just led to him having to come up with something. Otherwise, the fight, like you said, it would have been, even though it's $10, who wants to go watch that?
watch
yeah.
it.
And I think and everybody's been saying this all across the internet and stuff like that. Like, Deji and Fuzi are now the main event. Nobody. It's sad to say, nobody really cares that much about what KSI is doing that night.
Yeah.
But with the whole Jake Paul situation, couple thoughts on that is, one, it would have been cool to see them fight. Yes, it would have. 2, I understand the decision why they didn't go with it, because this could be potentially the biggest fight in influencer history. And if you put that in perspective, KSI and Logan Paul 2, the one in LA, they are the 5th highest pay-per-view
I've
boxing
seen
match
that.
in
Yeah.
history. 2 million pay-per-view buys, and to think that Jake Paul and him could be more than that is crazy to think about. But I also think that I don't know if Jake Paul's intention was really as much to try to get this fight with KSI as it was to get the spotlight off of him from dropping out of the Hasim fight.
Yeah.
Because everybody was starting to realize, like, oh, Hasim weighed in at 206 the night before the fight. Oh, Hasim is saying that his team is still pushing to drop weight. And now all of a sudden everybody's looking at Jake like, what's going on? And so he's like, you know what? Alex Wasabi dropped out. This is my opportunity to turn everybody's eyes on KSI. And if he doesn't take this fight, then I don't have to worry about them talking about the Hasim thing. And if you realize, like, afterwards when KSI said this isn't happening, everyone stopped talking about the Hasim thing. Everybody.
Absolutely.
It was now Jake Paul and KSI, and that's all everybody talked about.
And I guess from KSI's point, like, too, you know, what kind of fighter does he want to be? I mean, you know, he obviously was fighting another YouTuber, you know, and that's kind of a lot of pressure too. Is like, hey, now I have to look for somebody else.
Yep.
Now my promoter or that case, you know, we have to find somebody else who I want to fight.
Yeah.
You know, and then Jake Paul, you know, I like Jake Paul. I really do, because he's just flashy and kind of loud and stuff like that. But he's also given 100%. But you're right. Like, even Jake Paul didn't call somebody in right away. Like, if KSI really wanted to fight Jake Paul, he would mentally and physically prepare for Jake Paul.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right, that is going to be a huge fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why didn't Jake Paul call somebody else and still fight?
Right.
Because you don't do that. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you just don't do
Yeah.
that as fighters. And it's
Yeah.
like, you're right. I think, sadly, that's what he wanted to do, was take the shame away from him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, people not, or give KSI bad look for not taking that fight.
Yeah.
Even though it was free. But it's like, hey, still.
Yeah, 100%.
I didn't prepare for you. I prepared for my
Exactly.
opponent.
Right,
You know.
yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is too is that these other YouTubers on the card have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of them. Anyone who's done a YouTube boxing fight from the YouTube scene has only gained popularity afterwards.
Yeah.
The only people that have anything to lose, or the only person that does, is KSI.
Yep.
And if he were to step up, lose to Jake Paul, his reputation is going to take a hit.
I think he'll definitely take a hit. The good thing, though, about KSI is that his hand is in so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if his career doesn't head down, you know, winning in boxing, you know, he's still a boxing promoter now. And he has the Sidemen group, which is always going to do well because people love the Sidemen. And so I think that his personal boxing career, per se, is definitely going to take it. I don't think anybody's really going to want to fight him anymore after that, because it's like that. To other people's eyes, that's the peak of influencer boxing, is that right there. And so
He's building a different brand, whereas we've
Yeah.
heard Jake Paul say, hey, he wants to be a professional
That's what he
boxer.
wants to be,
yeah,
Well, if you want to be a professional boxer, then you go and you fight professional
Exactly.
boxers.
yeah, right.
You know, you're not worried
Yeah.
about what, you know,
Yep.
YouTube boxing is doing.
Yeah.
Like, he's building a
Yeah.
brand. You're right, KSI is. So, now, as far as his boxing skills, what do you guys think? Does he look better? Have you guys seen some footage of him, or what's the take on KSI?
This is on KSI or
KSI.
KSI.
He's wild. All the fights you've seen, he's had that wild
He's-
technique.
Yeah.
He says he's tamed it down. He says he's going to be a lot more fluid, but you know, it's kind of like the same thing with Joshua. He said, "I'm going for the knockout. I got that killer mentality back again." But you never really know until the fight happens.
Yeah, see, and I think that's the thing that's so interesting, is everybody's questioning, like, okay, is KSI going to come out throwing these looping
Yeah.
hooks again, or is he actually going to go 1-2 down the pipe like he's been saying every interview?
Exactly.
1-2 down the pipe, 1-2 down the pipe. It's like, it'd be cool to see that, but
Mhm.
nobody really knows. I mean,
Yeah.
like he's even said it himself, and so has many boxers and things, like, you can look good on mitts.
Yep.
You can look good
100%.
on the
Oh,
heavy
yeah.
bag. You can look
100%.
good doing these workouts and open workouts, but it's when you get in the ring,
Yeah.
is he going to stick to it, or is he going to go right back to those loops.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a plan until
Yeah.
they get hit in the face.
Yeah.